In the studio with me, like I said, is Ndipiwe Ntuli. He's General Manager at the Board of Airline Representatives of South Africa. And we are talking about the airline industry. An industry, as I was saying to you, that I like to bash from time to time because you guys are expensive and yet you guys are indispensable. Let's talk about just where we are in terms of the health of the industry, because we hear often how SAA is struggling. And yet at the same time, we report that Comair has been making profits consistently. I can't remember the number of years now, but I think it's for almost a decade, more than 2 decades or something like that. So you'd struggle to understand whether we are moving forward or not. Are we improving? Are we getting better? Are prices coming down? Many questions.
Thank you, Godfrey. Thank you for having me. Certainly, I mean, look, the industry is improving. If you look at the performance, in fact, the reports by IATA, the International Air Transport Association, released just about 2 weeks ago, it does confirm that we are headed for a year that's better than 2017.
Right. In terms of volume and people moved.
More volumes, more people moving, but also in terms of the profitability margins. Of course, you will understand that the airline industry's profitability margins are very low, certainly averaging around 5–8%.
You would never believe it when you look at those luxurious planes and all those nice facilities we see around the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, part of it is that the investment levels in operations are extremely high. The operational costs are extremely high. I mean, if you take simply the labor costs on their own, they average about 30% of your total expenses.
Is that a uniquely South African problem, or is that the general trend across the world?
That's a global trend.
30% of your costs go to your manpower.
20% would go towards fuel, jet fuel. Of course, depending on the performance of the economy generally, and especially the prices, your fuel prices, your exchange rates, you then will sit with your profit margins of between 5 and 8%. In fact, if you look at last year, the Asian airlines, which are often the best performing, combined, they sat with a profit margin of about 2.8%.
Wow. So it's not so much.
So it's a really difficult market to be in, difficult industry to be in.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk about something that I like to quote from time to time. So one time we went to Abidjan in the Ivory Coast from here in Johannesburg. So obviously this slightly concerns you, but not quite. And then colleagues that we met in Abidjan were coming from Lagos. And the price difference between us from Johannesburg, 6-hour flight, versus those guys from Lagos to Abidjan, 1-hour flight, was something like, I think it was $200 or something like that. And you asked the question, what kind of pricing goes into these tickets that we see? So a big bone of contention amongst people is always the pricing of the tickets. Explain to us where we are going in terms of trends on those prices. We see in other parts of the world that prices are coming down. Are they coming down here and in Africa?
The bigger picture is that if you look at the past 20 years, the price of a return ticket, an average price of a return ticket, has actually halved.
Really?
More than halved, actually.
It must have been very expensive.
The cost of an air ticket in 1998 compared to 2018, it's actually more than halved. So if you take just the airfare and you exclude your surcharges and other taxes, you look at that price, that price alone, it's actually more than half. So because there's lots of competition in the industry, there's lots of new innovations that are also taking place. With operators, deploying more efficient aircraft equipment, improving their performance levels, and investing in new technology that modernizes the way the operations are conducted. Now that helps benefit the end user. The consumer is actually the winner at the end of the day, because you've got more more and more airlines on certain routes. But also, if you compare route to route, I mean, routes differ. Yeah. And it also depends on the operators that operate a particular route and how competitive a particular route is. So, you know, you would have air city to city, as you say, in Lagos to Abidjan.
Johannesburg.
Absolutely, Abidjan to Johannesburg. The pricing structures of those are actually determined by, one, the type of aircraft equipment you deploy, the resources required, and you know, a combination of
and regulatory costs, of course, because you guys deal in a market that's highly regulated, rightly so. To what extent would you say that our regulations have kept pace with the advancements that you have seen on the aircraft side, on the efficiency side, on your members?
You know, as the board of airline representatives of South Africa, in fact, you may be interested to know that over the past couple of months, we have been engaging rigorously with regulators in South Africa, because as a community of airlines that represents foreign, in fact, international and African airlines flying into South Africa, our key responsibility is to engage with local regulatory authorities, to engage them on a variety of issues. One, safety issues, compliance issues, but also licensing issues broadly, to make sure that we ease doing business in the country. But also, importantly, we interface with your suppliers, your aviation service providers, be it infrastructure service providers, like your airports company in South Africa, your ATNS. So all of those, we make sure that at the end of it, we work with them to reduce, you know, to make sure that we increase efficiencies in the system, make sure that we apply the right technologies, provide the right services that at the end of the day will benefit the consumer at reduced, so that the consumer gets the services at reduced cost.
Absolutely.
So regulation becomes a critical element of the work that we do. One, because you want to make sure that it is easy for our airline partners to do business in South Africa and ensure that we increase the performance of the industry.
Before you go, I got to ask you, of course, you guys perform an important role as well. The president is looking for 1.2 trillion rand in investments. You are an important window into South Africa Inc. To what extent would you say that it's important to have locally owned airlines playing in that space, as opposed to us, you know, not liking the nice planes that we see from Emirates and all those other international airlines?
Look, the industry is a very competitive industry. I mean, and it is open for players, new and old. The key challenge, of course, whoever role player is in the market, is that you need to come in at the right levels of cost in terms of the offering, the product offering. It is important, of course, to ensure that you open up the industry without putting any restrictions on any player that wants to play. Because this industry is a job creator, contributes significantly to the economy, and we want to make sure that we play a constructive role, and in fact a very decisive role in turning around the fortunes of South Africa.
Absolutely.